Right, I'm back at last. It's been over a month since I last did my last podcast, but I'm back now, better than ever, and I'm gonna try. I know, my upload schedule isn't really. Um, I don't really have a what's the word? I don't really have a structure. I don't really plan what day I'm gonna do my podcast at, but I kind of just do it whenever I have time or feel like just doing whatever I mind. I don't want to be I don't want to be doing essentially this podcast started as pointless and no one's going to listen to it. I'd rather have something that is entertaining and that people can get some value from. So, what am I going to talk about? I think I read this book recently called Ego's the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, and it goes into a lot about the ego. And I heard like a true like spiritual practice and like kind of self help and all that. Like ego is a big kind of downfall, but also a big motivator to kind of get you to where you want to be. So essentially, like about the ego, like the if you want to reach the path of enlightenment, like the you must understand about what the ego is. Like as it's the first concept, like the first concept can be quite difficult to grasp for a lot of people because the ego is literally all they know, and like how we use the word in society today is pretty confused. Like many people, for example, they think that egotistical is synonymous with arrogance. And yes, while identifying with your ego is a type of arrogance because it's like you think you know who you are, but you actually have no idea. Like, say, for example, being egotistical like goes far beyond that. Being egotistical means that you identify who you are based on only surface level concepts. Like, the ego can only be defined as the false self. So, say, for example, you think that you know what makes you you, but you don't. Like, there's going to be a bit of a mind fuck here, but that's what like being egotistical is. So the false self, which is your ego, is what you think makes you you. So think to yourself, what distinguishes me from everyone else? Well, you'd probably go something along the lines of saying like your thoughts, your memories, your personality, your behaviors. Like that's what makes you you. But that is the ego, like the combination of everything you think makes you you. Well, think of where all these aspects of you came from. Like they weren't always there, which means that you weren't always you. Like you acquired these traits over the time you were born and like your experiences and over age, etc., etc. So none of these things you had when you were first born, like these societal constructs and norms, shaped your personality, and these behaviors, like your experience in society, gives you these memories. So you didn't choose the family that raised you. Like you didn't get to choose many of the experiences that you've had. They were simply given to you throughout life, and a combination of these things that were given to you throughout this thing that we call life forms a cluster of thoughts known as the ego. So we have all these thoughts in our minds, such as how you're supposed to act, your memories, your past experiences, societal constructs, like all these different things that are just taught. And if all these things were given to you, if you didn't have all these things, well, how can that make you you, let's say? So who is the you to which all these things were given? Well, that's the true you. Like the ego has just been given to you as if a you was there before this ego developed. Who was there before you had memories? Like who before you had a personality, before you had thoughts, like before you behaved a certain way. But that's actually you. Like a you that is infinite, like a you that is forever, like a you that is literally the universe. The ego just tricks you into believing that you're the only ego and that you're just a temporary individual self compromised with these thoughts and behaviors. But this is the falseness that we have to overcome to it, like from our suffering, and which then concludes that the ego is the cause of all mental suffering. Like it makes us think that the self is all we are and all we'll ever be or have. But if we were to adopt this mindset and experiencing of yourself isn't going to plan or how you envisioned, then that's where the suffering comes from. A good, I think a good analogy I like to use is, I like to adopt is that like if you think that you're the ego, it's like a tree thinking that it's a leaf. Like, I personally think it's crazy, it's delusional, and it's completely detached from reality. But that's the world we live in, a world completely detached from reality. And while we live in a world that is arrogant enough to believe that the reality is reality simply because science, something created by the ego itself, tells them it is. So if we go back to a leaf, like science only shows you that the understanding of a leaf, like, does that mean that there's not a tree attached to it? Like, of course not. Like, obviously, that's just not the case. But the ego hides the fact that we are the tree. Like, the ego makes us completely forget, like, all it is, and makes us believe that we're the only leaf. And when the life of the leaf doesn't go perfectly, that's when we suffer. Like, say for if you took, for example, you have one leaf and then you find another leaf and that leaf is nicer than the leaf next to you, we suffer again because that's our ego kind of playing in our minds. So if we, like, say if an insect comes along and takes a bite out of the leaf, we suffer because we think we lost a part of ourselves. But the entire time that we are the leaf, we're dreading the fact that one day we're going to fall to the ground and wither away. But let's not forget, we tend to also ignore that we can simply grow back another leaf. Like, in reality, we never were the leaf. Like, we simply had our awareness focused on the leaf. But if we were to direct our focus beyond the leaf via practices such as mindfulness or meditation or whatever it is, we begin to wake up and realize that we were never actually the leaf, but we were the tree the entire time. And it's in this moment where you are actually mind blown because you can't believe that you forgot you're the tree. So ultimately, that's the goal. So at the end of the day, we have to recognize and reduce the power of the ego. So when we wake up and realize that we are the tree the whole time, and being the leaf becomes much more enjoyable. So yeah, that's just a small little kind of. I've been doing a lot of writing recently. I just kind of like just wrote a little bit on the ego, just kind of because I've read a lot and listened to a lot on it, and I just kind of like may as well just discuss a brief bit about it. Obviously, I'm no life coach or psychologist, but it's kind of like that's my take on it. If anyone enjoys, please let me know. I'm gonna try another podcast up tomorrow, which probably a bit more interesting. I won't spoil the title, but it's definitely going to be a lot more interesting. But yeah, that's my take on the ego.